Well, everyone, it's time for us to go ahead and take a look at the first generation Apple Watch SE and see how this watch holds up in 2023. That kind of rhymed. Now, with the Apple Watch SE, when this watch came out in 2020, I thought these were very, very smart watches that Apple made. I thought it made so much sense for them to go down this direction. And when they made the, Apple Watch SE 2, a few years later, it was a very smart approach because I liked the iPhone SE, or at least the original one, and maybe a little bit of the second one too. But when they brought that philosophy over to the iPhones, I think it made the most amount of sense of pretty much most other, Apple products Apple makes. In fact, I think they should make some sort of iPad, SE. I think they should rebrand the iPad Air, or at least the base model iPads, as probably the iPad SE. I guess we'll see what happens in the future. But if you want to buy an Apple Watch SE, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now, when this Apple Watch came out in 2020, the one thing I really liked that Apple did here was that they pretty much gave the design of this Apple Watch basically the same experience as the other Apple Watches. So it really wasn't like you were getting like a different design Apple Watch, like kind of what we're getting now with the Apple Watch SE and the Apple Watch Series 8. At this time, you were getting the same 40mm or 44mm sizes, which was really nice. And another thing Apple did was that pretty much they gave us the same 1000 nits of brightness, which was cool. I still think the Series 6 display and build quality was better, but the Apple Watch SE first gen still felt and looked very good. There really wasn't too much to complain about there. Now, you had the digital crown on the top right. You had the side key or side button as well that, we all kind of know about. And on the back, we had the same charger or the same wireless charger capability as the other Apple Watches. As weird Apple can be sometimes, I do appreciate how they've kept the same Apple Watch charger year after year after year on all their Apple Watches. But not only that, but the bands are still suitable on all these Apple Watches as well. So if you were to get an Apple Watch, the first gen Apple Watch, you can still use those same bands on this generation of Apple Watches as well, even the latest ones, and everything in between. So that was a really cool thing that Apple ended up doing. I really liked that. They've done a lot of things that were like the exact opposite of this, but I really liked how they kept the same type of, generational thing on these specific Apple Watches. But do keep in mind that they don't really interchange between sizes. They just interchange between the top models or the base models of all the Apple Watches. So don't think you can get like the 40mm band and match it with the 44mm band. That's not how it works, but I think most people probably know that by now. Now, on the outside, that kind of covers it up. I think beyond that, there's really not anything else to kind of think about here because it's still a normal Apple Watch. Now, beyond that, the only thing why I would even classify this as like the last gen Apple Watch or like an older Apple Watch at that moment was because it did have the older chipset inside of it. So it had that S5 chip inside that pretty much matches the Apple Watch Series 5. So the same performance, the same internals for the most part that you're going to be getting from an Apple Watch Series 5 is pretty much what you'd be getting from an Apple Watch SE first generation. So I think that's actually a good thing, but there are some pretty big things to keep in mind here now. So for one, the Apple Watch Series 4 is technically the lowest supported Apple Watch right now. So that's currently the Apple Watch I use. So let's just say the Apple Watch Series 4 does not get watchOS, the next version of watchOS. Well, then that means the Series 5 is going to be last in line. Now, because this Apple Watch, the Apple Watch SE, has the same chipset as the Series 5, does that mean the Apple Watch SE is also going to be getting its last version of software this year? That's just something that you're going to have to kind of keep in mind, because I will say watchOS updates, much like iOS updates and macOS updates, every single update brings some really cool features. And I'm sure you don't want to be like on the last version of software. So in this case, it's pretty much not going to be any different. So because of that, when you have an Apple Watch like this, you may just want to keep it in the back of your head that, hey, if you get this Apple Watch this year, it may only last up until another year, but I will be completely honest, if you don't really mind, you can just keep using these older Apple Watches. They are just still very solid, very good, software-wise, and that's basically the main thing I'd probably keep in mind there. Now, beyond that, some features we are getting built in. One, we get those high and low heart rate, notifications, and irregular rhythm notifications as well, which is really cool. You still get water resistance up to 50 meters. You still have an LTE cellular model and or a Wi-Fi model you can choose from. And you have 32 gigabytes of capacity built into these, basically 32 gigabytes of storage built into these Apple Watches too, which is honestly very nice. So it's not like you're getting like a watered down experience. It's almost like buying an Apple Watch Series 5, maybe a little bit better here and there, or actually maybe a little bit worse here and there, but it's still a very good, capable Apple Watch. Now, another thing that's kind of needed to be kind of thrown in here too is basically with the feature set behind this Apple Watch. So personally, things I typically do with my Apple Watch basically include nothing crazy, but it's really about monitoring my workouts. So if I'm going running, or if I'm going running, I love seeing how much I'm running. I love seeing how many miles I've taken, how long I've completed each mile for. And honestly, if it wasn't for my Apple Watch, I don't think I would be running as much or even working out as much, mostly because I just wouldn't even think about it. But the fact that I look down on my watch and I see that my workout rings haven't completed yet, it does actually do something to me to actually go and get up and actually, kind of finish them. So it's kind of like a consistency thing. On top of that, the normal things I usually do with my watch, nothing crazy. I typically just look at notifications. I see if people are texting me. I respond to text messages. If people are calling me, I can quickly respond to my calls too if I'm away from my phone. And I think everybody kind of expects that and knows that from an Apple Watch too, so I don't need to bore you with that. But I will tell you, to kind of wrap this whole entire video up, I think the first generation Apple Watch, SE for the most part, is still a very good Apple Watch to pick up. The only reason I would be hesitant to even recommend an Apple Watch like this would be potentially if you were looking for an Apple Watch that is going to be lasting you for many, many more years. So you have to keep in mind, like I said before, when you have an Apple Watch SE first gen, you are basically getting an Apple Watch that has that last generation of chipsets. So that can be a little bit of a throw off for some people, because if you look at the second generation Apple Watch SE, you can see that Apple Watch actually has the S8 chip inside, which matches exactly what the current chipset is. So I think Apple's learned from that, mostly because they have a lot of other ways to differentiate these, Apple Watches. But back when this Apple Watch first came out, there wasn't really a lot of ways to differentiate both these models. So it's just kind of one of those things to keep in mind. If you're planning on buying the first gen Apple Watch SE, I would recommend just keeping in mind that maybe if you plan on keeping this watch for 5 to 6 years, this is probably not the watch that's going to do it for you. You may want to look for another watch. But if you plan on keeping a watch for 2 years, maybe 3 years, I think this is a decent option. They've gone down in price quite a bit in the used market, and you can buy these things all over the place. There's no waitlist, there's nothing like that. Now, you cannot buy them brand new anymore, so you will have to go, in the used market, you'll have to go through eBay, whatever way you can get it. But I definitely do think these are very good Apple Watches too. Just make sure your iPhone's supported, make sure your, everything else is supported, all your other accessories. And that's pretty much all you're going to have to do. So that pretty much covers it up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.